So in this session, we're going to look at E-ARK. As we said, it's finished. Towards the end of the project, we were encouraged to go for, or to apply to become a CEF building block in e-archiving. So that's what we did, and you'll hear about our journey and where we've got in our session today. So you'll hear about what we did in E-ARK, and then you'll hear more detail, and Manuela has already given us several cliffhangers here. You'll hear about the CEF process and where e-archiving is in that process. Here's our schedule. The DAS board is the Digital Archiving Standards Board, and we're very pleased to have Karen, an expert in this area, to be heading that. So, now, E-ARK. I thought E-ARK was brilliant, but then I wouldn't I? Am I able to be objective? Well, not quite. So, let's have a look. Not at what I think, but what the actual reviewers think. So this is taken word for word from our final evaluation from our reviewers. Who were our reviewers? We would not settle for anything less than the most stringent, the most strict, the most demanding of reviewers. We had Dr. Adrian Brown. Many of you will know him. He is one of the few people published in this area. He's got 2 excellent books on digital preservation and web archiving from the UK Parliamentary Archives. And we had Hannes Kulowitz from the Austrian National Archives. So they were our reviewers, and they were really demanding. Now, we already had a very ambitious project. We wanted to look at everything in e-archiving, everything you need for digital archiving, databases, records, geodata, ERMSs, all that, and also we wanted to have big data access, so we have experts in that area. We have databases, we have data warehouses, and we have big data Hadoop. If you want Apache elephants, we are the people. We know about pig and celery and rabbit. So we talk all these things. Oh my gosh, it's a real world. So we had an ambitious project. What did our reviewers think? We also had an excellent project officer, Alina Sen, who really made us work very hard. So this is taken directly from our final review, our final evaluation. So we had excellent progress in our final year. We had very significant results and advances to the state of the art. The level of commitment among the partners is very high, collaboration excellent, very good indicators for future sustainability. So this is not one of those projects that's here today and gone tomorrow. It is not a website or outputs that will just disappear. We had rigorous evaluation. We had a benefits management approach that was very useful and will continue to track the long-term benefits. Strong and convincing evidence of impact and quantifiable benefits, including for procurements, cost savings, and greater efficiencies. E-ARK came about because people lobbied for it, and they lobbied for it over several periods. So that in itself is interesting, that the archives were actually lobbying for this, and it did actually become a bid. And they lobbied for it because they needed the results from E-ARK, and we've heard this in other talks earlier at this conference, where there was a lack of standards, there was a lack of open source tools, there was a real need, and there was a real saving made at the end of the project when we looked at the impact. People had saved years and years of development time by working together. They were able to produce things in a few months that would have taken an archive 10 years on its own to produce. So we have quantified real savings, real cost benefit, and real efficiency. The results are already being used. This is not one of those projects where it's a talking shop and then something goes to die on SourceForge. No, these are actually being used, and used, as we say in English, in anger. They are being used in national archives, and people are very keen to develop them. We work closely with the MPF, and the MPF are very happy to take anything that we don't use, any tools that we don't use. However, so far, there's nothing that's going to be abandoned. Everyone's continuing to maintain what they've already developed. That's very good news. And we were told, and we were very happy to hear this, that E-ARK was actually labelled a European showcase project, that each partner contributed their strengths and assets, and they collaborated very effectively to produce extremely impressive and significant results which can be expected to have a long-term and wide-ranging impact. So, without further ado, I'll pass on to E-ARK, National Archives of Estonia, to talk about those results.
As most of you have already heard over the last 3 or 4 years of ELM presentations of E-ARK, then the core idea of E-ARK was to enable digital reservation interoperability, which means that we didn't necessarily go into the kind of research of digital reservation methods, how to do migration, how to do emulation, but the core aspect of E-ARK was that reservation institutions should be able to use whatever kind of excellence there is in the world, take the tools, take the standards, and implement, plug into their already available environments. So E-ARK, in the end of the day, you might argue, wasn't even that much about digital reservation, but it was rather about digital reservation interoperability and the kind of the sustainability aspect of digital archives. We all know that whatever standards, whatever tools we have right now, these are going to be outdated. Sooner or later, we can do our best effort that our tools and standards will last not 5 years, but 10 years, but 15 years. But at least in 15 to 20 years, what we use right now is going to be outdated. And the task for the archives at this point is to, as easily, as simple, as cost effectively as possible, remove the outdated components out of their infrastructure and replace with new state-of-the-art components. And obviously, what you need to have for that is then the interoperability. You need to have some core standards which allow your data to be carried on through generations of software. So, when we are talking about the technical outcomes, the E-ARK package, then the core of what we have been doing is really the standardization. Taking already available standards, which there were quite many on national and international levels before E-ARK, looking at these, comparing different competing standards, and trying to figure out what are the best components out of the international standardization and national standardization, which could be kind of summarized into a set of specifications which are beneficial for, on an international scale, to all preservation institutions. However, just having standardization and having a lot of paper specifications is not necessarily too useful. So the E-ARK approach was also to develop and test these standards on a set of software tools. So instead of just going into just having a set of specification standards, taking these standards, implementing these in a wide variety of software, and using the experiences of this implementation, again, feed back to these standards in order to make sure that the specifications are as useful and practical, as beneficial as possible. That's more or less the core focus of the E-ARK. However, when you are thinking about the dissemination and the adoption of these tools and standards, then obviously what you need to have next to these standards and tools is documentation and guidance. And that's something which E-ARK provided quite a lot of already. So you saw the presentation of the general model by Istvan before, so that's one of the aspects to really show how these tools, how these standards could be implemented in different scenarios, in different countries, in different legislative or institutional contexts. Now, a few words about all of these. So the standards are really not a big rule the world digital reservation specification, but it's a set of specifications. So we believe in layering. When we talk about the sustainability of digital archiving and digital reservation systems, then such a layering is again one of the measures which you can use in case of standards obsolescence and standards getting obsolete and outdated. So when you have a set of standards which you can plug in, plug out, that means that your visualization regime can be much more sustainable, you can replace components much more easily. And as such, we have a 3-layered model, which we propose from the E-ARK project. And the highest level is then what we call the common specification. A really high-level specification which describes how your information packages, most importantly, should be structured. It basically says you have data, you have metadata, you have relations between data and metadata, and that's the 10-page specification which tells you how to describe and how to structure all of these things. Whatever data you have, whatever metadata. The next layer which you have in archives is then the processes. You have the ingest processes, pre-ingest processes, preservation, and access. And that's the next layer of specifications. We have the submission information package specification, which go a bit more into detail from the common specification. There is the archival information package, there is the dissemination information package. But again, all of these information package specifications are quite high level in the sense that they don't care what kind of data you use, what kind of metadata you use. You might have EAD metadata, more metadata, doubling core, whatever. What the SAP PDIP care about is that you would be able to describe data, the metadata, the relations between, and also have some elements about the process. The preservation events, the submission process, the dissemination process, etc. So you have a full picture. What you also need then, in the end of the day, in practical implementation, is then the content information type specifications. And ultimately, you can have an infinite number of content information type specifications in the end of the day. As many data types you have, for each of these you might ideally have one content type specification. So you might have something for 3D images, virtual reality applications, etc., etc. However, being a practical and highly pragmatic project, we are concentrated on the things which concern public sector actors the most. It's databases, records management systems, file systems, and geodata. So these are the 4 content types which are already available, which are managed by the E-ARK and now then the DLM forum and the DOS board, and which are immediately available for use. But we also support the development of additional content information type specifications once there is interest for that from the community. As said, having just these standards is not sufficient, so we also try to develop tools to match each of these specifications. So we have the kind of ideology behind the development of these tools was from the very beginning that all of the tools we develop should be open source. We are not there to work for ourselves, but we are there to work for the community, and everything we developed, all the tools to support these specifications are open source and they are publicly available on GitHub. At the same time, we are also looking at some of the key aspects in public sector archiving. So scalability was taken as one of the core considerations. So we had partners who are dealing with databases ranging into multiple hundreds of terabytes or even petabytes. So as an example, for database archiving tools, you need to have highly scalable solutions which would allow you to archive such masses of information, store such masses of information on physical media, which has its limitations, and so on and so on. Modularity, again, one of the aspects. Many of the archives nowadays already have their digital infrastructures available, and they are not necessarily ready to give up their whole infrastructure and replace with E-ARK components. But what they need is some plug-in components to some processes, database tools, SAP creation, some access on big data or data mining, but not necessarily to replace everything else. See, and that was, again, one of the points of development, therefore. You should be able to take one tool. There are clearly defined standards, the specifications which these tools operate on, and the following of these specifications allows you to plug in the available tools or the needed components for you without much additional development. But ultimately, the core thing to understand about E-ARK tools is that these are more or less examples. These are samples on the use of specifications. We know that E-ARK tools, though there are already quite many, they don't cover all the needs of all the institutions across all the sectors, banking, pharmaceutical, public sector, public health. So there need to be more. But these mainly serve just for the sake of demonstrating how the specifications are used and can be used. Demonstrating which might be the use cases of using these specifications, and also for the E-ARK project itself as feedback to the specification management, specification development process. But whatever we have here in E-ARK is going to be obsolete sooner or later, not hopefully later, but still it's going to be obsolete, and that's where we still have our principles, we have the specifications, and we can use modern technologies to develop new tools to do the same task. This image is just to show that we have really covered with our tools actually the whole process of archiving. From the very beginning, you have the content management systems, databases, file systems, where the data lies which you need to archive. There are some tools which allow you to export data from geo-information systems, records management systems, databases. You have tools to enrich the exported data with additional metadata, additional context, the SAP creation tools, quite many of these. All of these support then the E-ARK SAP standard specification. They export this interoperable SAP, and then you get into the digital archive itself. You have the ingest workflows, again, as showed by the general model. The ingest workflows in E-ARK have been implemented in quite a few different evaluation systems, and then you have the access part, where you have quite a variety of viewers and access components, as an example, for viewing preserved databases, for viewing preserved geodata, records management systems, etc., etc. Also, we looked into data mining and scalable computing, how to implement scalable computing next to your archival repository, which in a few years might very well run into hundreds of petabytes of slides. But finally, as I said, all of this information kind of has limited impact if only the developers of the tools and specifications know what they are. So what we have concentrated quite a lot already in E-ARK, and what we especially want to continue with in regard to the CFE archiving building block is the documentation and guidance. For now, what we have mostly is then the passive dissemination. We have all the specifications have been made public. They are available on the E-ARK project. You have all the information about the pilot implementations and use cases which you can get from the E-ARK website. Karin will tell you more about it, but these specifications are currently being transferred into the DAS port to be owned and further developed there. But also the information has been started to be carried into the TLM forum knowledge center, the kc.tlm forum.eu. Make sure to check it out. And in addition to this more passive kind of website-based access to specifications thing, you also have some of the more advanced tools available on the knowledge center. You have the maturity model assessment tool available on the knowledge center, which basically means you go to the website, you fill in the questions, and you get a good, you get to be aware whether you are really early in implementing digital observation, whether you are in some mid-levels, or whether you are really mature and really advanced digital observation institution, which obviously that quantifiable measurement allows you to also to policy decisions. What is the next step in our program towards implementing a full digital observation system? General model already mentioned, and within this year, other people are going to talk more about it, but we really now want to start getting outside of the circle of members of E-ARK and really go to the world, provide training materials, online training potentially, hands-on training, demos of the tools. If there are new tools developed for us, we want to go into conformance testing. That we could guarantee that yes, your visualization tool also conforms to the E-ARK specifications. And finally, also, we are looking into establishing a help desk so that you could actually, there would be someone to ask questions about the specification and tools. So that's what we have currently, what we intend to do. A lot of information is short somewhere in a short time, but if you have any further questions, then as usual, I'm there for you.
So you have already heard the dashboard, and I don't know if I need to say too much here, but dashboard is actually not part of the E-ARK project. It's a continuation for the specifications. So what we did, or actually I wasn't in the project, what others did was to collect the specialists, which I'm one of. And we are 8 people. We had a face-to-face meeting on Tuesday. We want to have at least 2 face-to-face meetings a year, and we combine them with the DLM forum. People are often in the same place, so we take advantage of that. And Kulda talked about the specifications, Jan talked about the specifications. I think everybody will mention specifications and standards. And what we are doing is moving from a project to a program. We want to have something that, as Kulda said, is need to be sustainable. We need to put the specification up, taking them from the project result and putting them into a maintenance state with revision cycles and everything. Some people think, okay, I have a standard and I have a profile, I don't need to do anything more. But Kulda said it, things happen. Things sometimes happen really fast. I know there are going to be revisions of some of the standards, not currently used in the dashboard, but revisions do happen. And we are working on our time plan, us 8 people, and at the same time, we can't just allow ourselves to work with a time plan, we need to do the work. So we are moving the specifications from project to program right now. And I don't know if I need to say so much more, so I'm giving over to the next speaker.
Thanks for that question.
So the general vision behind these all activities, whether we call it project or program, is to make the life of the institutions easier. Actually, the archives and all the institutions who have to preserve digital records suffer from 2 challenges. The information, the quantity of the information is booming. It's an explosion of the information. That's one thing. The second thing is that we have to reduce the costs. The budget for the institutions is decreasing. So we have to support the archives in, with the product of the cooperation. So the most important thing, how we tackle these challenges, if we develop things, develop the specification, develop the tools together. So the goal of the stakeholder management in the program on the e-archiving has some special attributes. What we have to consider that we would like to reach for target groups. So first of all, you could see from the presentations of István or Dr. Kulda that the e-archiving universum is very complex. We have standards, several standards. We have several software tools which support these standards and implementation. We also have pilots and we also have processes. And these elements are interlinked to each other in a very complex way. So it's not, we couldn't do that, dear users, these are our products and use it. We have to support them actively. Second thing, what we should consider when we start our activity, that comparing to other building blocks, the E-ARK community exists. So we have archives, we have experts, we are the DLM forum here, a lot of users of our products. We shouldn't we shouldn't build it up from scratch. And we have institutions with very specific needs. We have, but our users are the institutions, and we have to go them directly. So we have, for example, I brought up some examples. We have a developer who has its product in a lot of large archives. But how can we convince them to use our specification when they prefer their profiles? We also have a large European agency just started to make a strategic document on the future of E-ARK. We have to go there and support them with the information of the E-ARK tools. We also have large archives, just starting digital archiving project. These projects are large-scale projects. We cannot do that. This is the specification, please use it. We have to explain them how to use it. We have to explain them how to implement the software tools in their environment. So we have to actively support them. In Spain, it's not a secret, there is a centralized solution centralized software solution to support each regional or government archives. We have to channel in the specification into that project. It would be very easy to reach each government archives in Spain that way, but we have to go there. We have to organize meetings with them in order to reach that goal. So, and we have existing communication channels. So, through the life of the E-ARK project, we developed different kind of things, LinkedIn group, and the users actively use these channels in order to change the information thanks to the interest of the part of community. So in community management, our approach is to go directly to the users and convince them to use our products and support them in their use, and not waiting for them, that just making a website and if somebody accidentally get there and have some information. So we have to hold their hands in order to get through the implementation phases from the planning to the end of the implementation and maintenance. And yes, we have to build a practically working network of the people in order to get better information from that, to see their expectations from the E-ARK giving program. So in this, we are planning to share the task with the stakeholder management office of the Connected Europe Facility program, because we are convinced that this is the best solution to reach the most of the people, most of the institutions, and use the resources which is available the most effective way. So, and this could also support the sustainability after 2020, because we don't know how the next budget will handle the issue of the Connecting Europe Facility infrastructure elements, but we will be here after 2020 as well, that's sure. And this community, through the DLM Forum, could support the sustainability after 2020 as well. Okay, so we have a proposal for the CF, how to share the responsibilities of communication and stakeholder management, because it's obvious that the promotion of the building blocks is the responsibility of the CF SMO, but we, archivists, we, the partners of the DLM, could reach directly the more stakeholders. Okay, so next step, David Anderson, please.
So it's me again. Before I get into the meat of my comments, I want to mention the pivotal role that DLM Forum has played in E-ARK from its planning and in its operation. Although not every organisation in this room played an active part, as Karen said she didn't, played an active part in the work, the funded work of E-ARK, this organisation supported us from when we decided to put this proposal forward and has sustained us all the way through. Through our advisory boards and through collaboration with you guys, we've had an advisory route, we've had active participation, and we've had what I would think of as a democratization of this project, because first and foremost, we have been concerned with delivering value for the archival community widely understood. And we have to listen very carefully to what all of us want and try and take things forward on that basis. At the conclusion of the E-ARK project, it was decided, as we knew from the outset, the DLM Forum would take charge of the outputs of the project. And that means that we have a responsibility as a forum to see that this activity is continued, sustained, and taken forward into the future, and that it continues to have benefit for years and decades ahead. And as the Secretary and Treasurer of this organisation, I am absolutely committed to seeing us do that thing. Clearly, there's only so much you can do in a 3-year funded project, and I think that the team have done an absolutely marvellous job. I've been involved in a lot of projects over my career, and I've never seen a project deliver the way this one has delivered, and it's an absolute tribute to the archival community. For good reasons or bad, archiving hasn't actually got a lot of funded research from the ECF and elsewhere, but when we got it, boy, did we make good use of it. So we recognise that further work needs to be done. My colleagues have already said some of the areas in which this will happen. Clearly, we're interested in specifications and standards, and Karen's perhaps a little bit modest. I think Kuldar mentioned something along these lines. The specifications and standards are the living heartbeat of what we do. Everything, absolutely everything flows from that. When you've got the standards and the specifications sorted out, only then can you develop tools. When you've got the standards and specifications sorted out, only then can you decide how tools will be adapted. Only when you've got those things sorted out can you come up with a realistic training and outreach program. So everything starts from standards, and that's why, under Kuldar's direction initially, we decided to establish the DAS board to make sure that that was well handled and prepared for the future. At the end of E-ARK, at the final presentation, we congratulated ourselves. We've done very well, thank you very much. The EC loved what we've done. We were very pleased with that. And about 2 hours afterwards, Pro Kuldar had to make a presentation to the CEF building blocks programs, essentially to all the member states of the European Union. There were a number of other presentations being made, and I'm glad to say that he did, as he always does, an outstanding job. And our proposed building block was one of the two taken forward. And I like to think we came top, but who knows? At any rate, this gives us an opportunity to take forward some of our work under the CEF building blocks programme. And we've been negotiating with the CEF team since Q1 of 2017, almost since the day of that presentation. We have, as colleagues have indicated, developed over those months a fairly detailed programme of activities. And the CEF has a particular way of doing things, and colleague Joel will come down in a moment and he'll give you this in great detail, I suspect. But we've built our programme around a number of core services. And the purpose of this was to facilitate cross-border, cross-sector technical interoperability. And in Manuela's keynote this morning, she mentioned how there have been various innovations coming from the EC, and one of the very first things under which we were funded was this idea of cross-border interoperability within archives. So this fits very solidly within the DLM Forum brief, and very solidly with what the Commission and the European Union want to see in the area. So what we're going to do in the first tranche of work, and we're not thinking about what comes next as a project or as a procurement or anything like that. We see it genuinely as programs. So in program terminology, we'll talk about the first tranche of work. We're building this around 3 pillars. We're building it on further stabilising the technical specifications and standards, and as I've indicated, that is absolutely key. And we have assembled, under Karen's leadership, a really top team drawn from our own community. People who not just who not only understand standards and specifications theoretically, but they get it for us. They understand what archives need. They understand what preservation needs. These are the right people to be doing this job. So we're going to build around that. We also have to think, I've spoken about the DLM Forum community, we have to think about how to keep you involved, but also, as Goldar indicated, to spread the net wider. It can't just be the national archives, the national libraries. It has to be commercial. We have to get into areas. We heard people from the European Central Bank speaking this week. We have to spread this net further, because if this is really going to be part of the digital single market, we are not the only constituency. We're a very important constituency, but we need to go wider. So, one of the really important pillars we've got is to enable the adoption of core services by reaching out to the community, involving the community, listening very carefully to what is wanted and responding dynamically to that, and making sure that the sort of satisfaction reports that we get back are comfortably in the 90–95% and above. Because frankly, without that sort of satisfaction, we're doing a bad job. And I'm pleased to say that within E-ARK, those are the kind of satisfaction rates that we were constantly getting. Another pillar is to enhance the user experience, and I think Kuldar signaled this already in his talk. Training will be key. Training in the standards, training in the specifications, training in the tools. Training. It's actually something that I'm very proud to be involved with, because that's something that DLM Forum as an organisation should be doing anyway, and this will fit comfortably into the portfolio of activities that we see taking the organisation forward from here. The last slide is a little difficult to read, and you'll be noticing I've been wiggling these glasses about, because I've reached the age, I'm afraid, where I need at least 3 pairs of eyes, and if I'm going to work the microphone, I need to bring this up a bit more closely. You'll see here what the e-archiving service offering looks like. So there's a bunch of enabling services, and I'll just list a few of them. I won't tire your patience by reading through the slide. The slides will be made available to you, and you can look at this in detail yourselves later. But we see that we're looking at database archiving tools, CMS export tools, SIP creation and other pre-ingest tools, repository solutions and access tools, and the other one is validation tools, and that's something that has yet to be provided. And you'll see that in each case where something has an asterisk beside it, it's something that we think is terribly important, but isn't currently available. You'll also see the target audiences represented as repositories, data curators and solution providers and their indicator where we have identified them already. This may not be exhaustive, it may not be perfect, but I think it's a reasonably good first stand. What you will notice looking at this diagram, I hope, is that across the enabling services, the technical specifications, the stakeholder management, and the standards of ESOs, we've actually got really rather a lot done already. That doesn't mean to say that what we've got is in a perfect condition. It needs to be maintained, it needs to be fine-tuned, but we've already, within E-ARK, covered a great deal of what we have to cover, and we have clearly identified, working under the CEF programme, places in which we want to go ahead. Before I hand over to Charles, who'll tell you much more detail of building blocks, what I do want to do is send you back with a message to your host institutions. The E-ARK team is immensely grateful for the support that we've had from this community, but we need your support going forward. We need to be enthused about this. We need to see ways in which we can take E-ARK and DLM Forum and this community forward, initially under CEF building blocks, but perhaps as funding instruments change and as opportunities change, how we take it further forward. We also want to get ourselves to a position where we can do this without looking for specific EC or other funding. We've got to learn to be self-sustainable because the tap that gives us funding will not run forever. And that's something that we need to take on board. And what, as the treasurer of the DLM Forum, what I want to see this activity do, and maybe some funding a little bit further down the stream, is to put us in a position where we can do exactly that. That doesn't mean to say if opportunities come up for funding in future, we'll ignore them, but this core activity has to be something that we take charge of and make sustainable for the long term. So I'll clear the floor to my colleague, but I think we'll also probably take a minute to get some slides in, so now have a moment to shuffle.